Hello, welcome to Everyday Experts. Today I have the pleasure of bringing one of my new and strongest energized friends out to speak to today. Um, there are people you run across in this world that like exude a certain strength, a certain trait. And there are a lot of people that, when I meet them and when I do the show, I want to learn about their traits. I want to know what is it that makes this person or that person special? What makes them an expert? I want to learn about these desired traits. And there are times when you meet a person who just has a light that glows brightly and effervesces, and you're like, "Ooh, kind of drawn to that," like the moth to the light. When I approached Glenn about being on my show, I knew it would be a jostling of two intellects, two minds, discussing some serious as well as esoteric topics. So, I want to read the definition of intellectual because it fits. It's the act of relating to the intellect or its use, developing or chiefly guided by the intellect rather than by emotion or experience. It's rational, requiring the use of intellect and intellectual games, given to study, reflection, and speculation, engaged in activity requiring the creative use of the intellect and intellectual playwrights. So I present to you a man of high intelligence and understanding of all types of energy, Mr. Glenn Cesar. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Sir Joker. It's a pleasure to be here with
Namaste.
you. Namaste, absolutely.
Namaste. So,
First off, I'm sorry, go ahead. Didn't mean to cut you off.
I found a quote that very much fits both of our personalities. I'll never fit in. That's one of my best qualities. Matt, pop it up for the people. I'll never fit in. That's one of my best qualities. Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Cesar, carry on, please, sir. You were saying.
No, I was just going to say, first of all, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to obviously you and to everyone in the chat. John Bainbridge, Legoland, Matt Munoz, Bruce Banner, Austin Kramer. Salute, shout out to all of you guys. Like Joker said, this has basically been a long time coming.
Yes.
Well, it's been our conversations about me writing a book about my life story, which we can get into either tonight or on another show. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But to me, and Joker sort of touched on it a little bit ago, for those of you who know me and have seen me, whether it be on other YouTube shows and in live chats or in Zooms or whatever the case may be, but I'm always talking about energy and the power of your thoughts and words have power and meaning, and so we'll get into all of that stuff, and we'll also get into some stuff about specifically my path in life and how I've come to be the person that I am today, and how energy work and all of that sort of stuff sort of plays into my personality and my role in life. And one of the things that some of you may have heard me talk about is that you are literally the writer, director, actor, and producer of your own life story. And so one of the things in my life story that I didn't necessarily realize at first, it took me 18 or 19 years to figure it out. Number one, that was true, but also that energy was a major through line in terms of what my life story was up until that point and what it was going to be going forward. So one of the things that we'll get into in a little bit is to simply do a really easy, simplified, essentially very basic / rudimentary mindfulness meditation that allows you to sort of work with whatever energies you can handle for yourself. And I'll be sort of laying out the guidelines of how that's going to happen, and you'll sort of be following along as I lead you through it. But it's just a simple way to get into the practice, because I always hear the stereotypical statement of, oh, I tried meditation once or twice, but I never really could get into it. It wasn't for me. I didn't know if I was doing it right, or I couldn't quiet my mind down, and I had all these thoughts. And so they give up basically without necessarily understanding that, yeah, they were doing it right. They just didn't give themselves enough credit for having done it right. and sticking with it. And one of the things that I'll also talk about is like this concept that meditation has to be difficult, or that it's hard to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
meditation is super easy. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But the other thing, as we're going through this whole night of conversation, and who knows what else will unfold, because it's always a good time. Anytime me and Joker get together and talk about stuff, because
Facts, as the young people say.
exactly. But like if you guys have questions as I'm going through a story, or whether it be about something specific and personal to my life, or just in general,
Mm-hmm.
throw it in the chat. And Matt, fantastic moderator of this channel, shout out to him, will see it and throw it up on screen, and either myself and Joker will talk about it, and we'll
Yep.
see what comes of the conversation. But we're gonna have fun one way or the other, because let's be honest, I can't help but have fun and laugh at life, because what else is there to do
Mm-hmm.
with life other than enjoy it while you're living it? So yeah, so I'll just turn it back over to Joker, and we can get it started.
So, before what is mindfulness? I know you said it's a simple mindfulness. Just Cliff Notes version. Then you
Yeah.
can get into your exercise, sir.
You know me too well, brother. So basically, mindfulness the simplest way I can sort of put it is to like break it down into categories. So everybody's aware, obviously, you're living in your body, you're a human. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
has a brain, and for the most part, most people sort of understand the concept of that they have a spirit, or a soul. So when I talk about mindfulness, I'm talking about, obviously, your physical body is your physical body. So to give the analogy, the best way I can sort of explain it is to like use the analogy of a computer. Like
Mm-hmm.
a computer has a CPU and a main processing unit and all that stuff. So essentially your body is one thing, and the main CPU, so to speak, of your
Mm-hmm.
body is your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have a spirit, which you do, I'll tell you that in case you were wondering, the main processing unit, so to speak, of your spirit is your mind. And
Mm-hmm.
well, if that, I just told you what the brain is, and I told you what the mind is, and I talked about the spirit. So what is the soul? Well, essentially, the soul is like, let's say, if you were to imagine your spirit as a pie.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to incarnate into a physical body, you want to attach your spirit to your body so that you can operate it.
Right.
Well, imagine you cut the pie up into 8 individual slices. And so each
Mm.
individual slice that connects to essentially what is the pineal gland and into the thymus gland, so that it's fully connected to your body, which is what happens at birth, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Long story, but we can talk about that another time. So that each individual slice is what you would refer to as your soul. It's the connecting piece between, yes, your soul is an apple pie Lego. I see you. Um, your soul is essentially that individual portion of your entire spirit that connects you to any individual physical body that you have at the time. So when we talk about things like reincarnation, so let's say if you were, your plan overall, once you're in your total spirit, is that you were going to need to incarnate 8 different times with
Hmm.
8 different physical bodies over 8 lifetimes, or whatever, however long the case may be. So you're essentially going to use one of those individual pie slices, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
of your total spirit to connect your spirit to your body. That's what your soul is. So under most circumstances, especially in today's world, most people have multiple souls that comprise their entire spirit.
Hmm.
And so each individual lifetime you have a different connection to your spirit. Now, not to get super technical, but as you advance in your spiritual growth and all that stuff, you start to be able to go up through from your brain to your mind
Mm-hmm.
to your soul, which is at the thymus gland, and then up through that, upward through your pineal gland, out into the totality of your spirit. And eventually you're able to read all of the individual pie slices, which are essentially recordings of each individual of your lifetimes to make the total you. So when you have full understanding of everything that you've experienced in a physical body,
Mm-hmm.
that is enlightenment. When
Mm.
you can recall even experiences that you've had in past lifetimes, etc. Again, super technical, super complicated, not really the topic of discussion for this episode, but if we do a future episode, which chances are good, or however it may work out, we may get into that on a future episode. But yeah, so that's what I mean. Yeah.
When we do a future episode, A. And
Okay.
two, I like this. I know you want to do your mindfulness exercise. I
Right.
got that. Multiple
Okay. So,
souls.
not to cut you off, but I don't think I fully answered your question. So, your mind is essentially your pineal gland, and that's the pathway through which
Um.
you connect to your spirit. So it's the CPU. So basically, like your brain is the CPU
Mm-hmm.
of your physical body, your mind is the CPU of your spirit, which allows you access to all of your memories from all of your lifetimes that you've recorded in your total spirit. So mindfulness is to be fully connected and to be
Mm-hmm.
able to access your spirit. So that's what mindfulness refers to.
So is the pineal gland you're talking about the third eye that they refer to? I'm only asking because
Right.
that's the. Oh, okay.
That's
Now,
absolutely correct. It's
so
also
your
referred to
third
as the
eye.
seat of the soul and various names
Okay.
like that. So that yes, that's absolutely correct. You're correct.
So if we have multiple souls that make up our pie, are when we tap into, say, a past piece or of our soul, a past soul, is that similar to the experience of deja vu for like in layman's terms?
The, I understand where you're coming from. So in some senses, the answer would be yes, but not truly, because
Okay.
deja vu can specifically refer to this particular lifetime where it's
Mm-hmm.
essentially your because again, it's hard for the brain to translate everything that's in
Mm-hmm.
an individual soul, let alone your entire spirit. So you may have an energetic feeling
Mm-hmm.
or color, for lack of a better way to put it, that sort of your brain doesn't know how to interpret otherwise. So the best way it can make you understand it is to say you've experienced something almost identical to this before, and you'll perceive it as okay. This is that deja vu thing. It's just because again,
Mm.
there's so much that the human brain couldn't isn't capable of truly translating without you essentially fully disconnecting from your physical body and going back into your full spirit, which is the
Mm-hmm.
reason why people, when they go through deep meditations, they always talk about, oh, it was kind of boring. I didn't necessarily see anything or see anyone or get to talk to anyone. All I saw was colors flashing and felt sensations. Well, to be honest, that's one of the highest meditations you can have because the
Mm.
higher levels, and we won't talk about creation on this episode, but in the higher levels, there aren't physical bodies. You're just a mass of energy swirling like a
Mm.
kaleidoscope of colors that represent experiences. So for people who talk about, oh, I just, remember seeing these colors, well, it's because you were communicating with someone who's long since no longer has a physical body. And the only way for your spirit, aka the multiplicity of your souls, to understand and communicate with that being is to sort of communicate through visual representation of colors and things like that. And that's the only thing that your brain could interpret to make it make sense down here in this little tiny physical body that you're living in. So, yeah,
Wow. So one more question, sir.
sure.
Um, the movie Lucy, was that it with Scarlett Johansson? I believe that was.
Yes.
So
I'm so glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that eventually. So we're in sync already. So it's perfect. Go
so
ahead.
so when we talk about Lucy, is that um the best artistic interpretation or kind of what you were describing? Because didn't she like ascend to nothing but everything, so to speak? And you can correct me. I'm asking you.
But no, no, no. Like I said, I'm so glad you brought this up because it's like literally one of the only examples I can sort of think of
Okay.
in pop culture that people will even remotely understand.
Okay.
So yes, and again, this is the thing. The idea with meditation, especially super powerful meditation, but really any meditation,
Mm-hmm.
is about getting you out of the awareness of your brain and your physical body to go up to connect to your pineal gland, and
Mm-hmm.
then so it's sort of like a snake
Mm-hmm.
coiled, you're basically you're starting from your breath, your
Mm-hmm.
upper chest, where your higher heart is, or your thymus gland. So that's the initial point of the end point of where your soul is connected to your physical body. So you're starting when you initially start any prayer, even if it's just a thought of praying, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to start that energetic chain reaction where you're connecting from your thymus gland upwards to your pineal gland to fully activate the connection of your entire soul.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the other thing that we'll talk about in terms of the meditation. If there are no blockages, no energetic stuff
Mm-hmm.
in the way, that so you're going up and then you're basically going out to encompass your head and brain and all that stuff, and then it will just expand outward from there because essentially your spirit is much larger than people
Mm.
oftentimes think of. So it actually encompasses your physical body. So it's almost like you're in a bubble,
Mm-hmm.
and your body is like literally like you've seen that Leonardo da Vinci sketch, super famous, where you've got the man, his arms are outstretched and his legs are outstretched, and he's
Mm-hmm.
touching all these different points. That's essentially what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going out into your spirit. So
Okay.
in Lucy, when and this is funny because I'll talk about it more later. Remind me if I don't think of it myself. But the idea of that synthetic drug, sort of, for lack of a better way to put it, colonizing her brain,
Mm-hmm.
sort of, and it's actually blue, and that makes sense. But I won't go into it now. But it makes sense. It's that color. So essentially, what's happening is you're transforming every individual cell and molecule and atom of your brain to
Mm-hmm.
become essentially a higher form of balanced energy so that it can tap so that there's no blockages so that eventually it's almost like a wavelength. If you
Mm-hmm.
like an ocean wave, if it's really wide, like you're going to have smaller peaks and valleys, but if you compress it inward, the heights are going to be super high
Wow.
and the wavelengths are going to be super short. So essentially, to say what you said, you're ascending higher levels into various portions of your spirit. So, which is why,
Mm.
spoilers for everybody who's not seen Lucy, at the end of the towards the end of the movie, but basically this black like mist or ooze or whatever sort of encompasses her whole body to the point where, and there's a ticker that's going off to basically say how much of her brain has
She
been
assessed.
colonized into
Right.
oneness. So when it reaches 100%, she physically disappears and she transcends into a higher level of energy that's everywhere.
Okay.
So yes, that's what happens with every meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in increments, you never get to that 100% in one shot. At least not in today's world. In the past, perhaps you could have, let's say, 1,000 years ago, 2,000
Mm-hmm.
years ago, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the principle of why most people choose to do meditation, because it's a way
Mm.
to not only physically heal and help other people heal and all that other stuff, but it's a way to, so to speak, overcome the wheel of karma and reincarnation.
Mm.
So another example is Yoda in Return of the Jedi, or Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars when he disappears, becoming
Mm.
one with the Force. That's what they're referring to.
Right.
That
Right.
would be a physical body essential, which is a little bit more complex, but you get what I'm saying. So you're definitely, the principles are there. Yeah. So
Okay. All right. So before we keep going on rattling brains, let's do the mindfulness meditation technique so we
okay,
can get a taste of it, sir.
right. Okay. So before I go into it, let me see who's in the chat. Obviously, Rob and Jimmy Nails and Matt Munoz and Joseph Boris. Shout out to you. John Bainbridge, Legoland, and obviously Joker, you're here with me. So basically, what I'm going to do is lead you through a meditation that's both cleansing and, which by virtue of it being cleansing, automatically mean that it's centering and balancing, which is helpful for everyone,
Okay.
no matter what your age, race, creed, color, gender, or if you're non-binary, it helps because we live on planet Earth, and planet
Yep.
Earth is tough, and we all got emotional baggage about something, one way or the other. And every time we go out and interact with other people, whether we know it or we don't know it, what they say and what they do energetically impacts us. So it's almost like pinball, like that,
Mm.
or a popcorn situation where something's coming at you, it hits this one thing in particular, if it's bothering you, boom, it's going to
Mm.
explode, and now you have an emotional response, and now
Mm.
you're pinballing off all the people around you. So you can either choose to bring the energy up
Mm.
or bring the energy down. My thing before I let you go, my thing has always been, if you're not going to bring the energy up, at least don't bring the energy down. It's
Mm.
that whole um, physician do no harm.
Right. Right.
So this is the reason why, and it's funny because for those of you who are fans of the World Girls and Steph's brought, you know that last night she did a cleansing sound bowl meditation to reset the energy to clear, quote unquote, the chakras,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then allow the energy to sort of carry you forward. In Steph's case, throughout the rest of the week, and set positivity and your intentions for good things to manifest in your life and in the lives of others. I
Mm.
understand all of that, and the sound bowl works. But what I will say is there are certain things that I do that will, and I won't even give myself credit for it because all credit goes to both of my teachers. Gary Smith, that's not his spiritual name, but I'm not going to say it because it would call in his energy. And to be honest, there's really no reason for me to call his energy in. And his other half, very true, Jimmy Nails, and we'll talk about that as we
Mm.
get further along in the episode. And his teaching partner, his other half, um, Lisa Rossi. Again, that's not her spiritual name, but I'm not gonna say it because I don't need to be pulling in any of her energy.
Mm.
Although, let's be honest, from my perspective, they know what I'm doing anyway.
Yep.
But that's a whole separate issue on a different episode.
Mm.
So essentially, if you're going to be a pinball all of the time anyway, because we're living on Earth and we're interacting with people, then first do no harm. And the only way to do that is to make sure that you are good and balanced and centered and at least whole enough to recognize yourself and what's going on in the world around you so that you're not pinballing off of other people and you can consciously choose to how you respond to the world around you. So I always start with cleansing
Mm-hmm.
every day. And I said this to Joker earlier today. It's almost like everyone, for the most part, when they wake up in the morning or whenever they're going to start their day, they get up, they go use the bathroom, brush
Mm-hmm.
their teeth, shower, whatever, and then they put on their clothes and then they go out the house and then they interact with the world. You wouldn't do it any other way. It's like if you've been lounging in your house eating ice cream and potato chips and everything, got food all over you, you wouldn't just hop up off the couch and say, "Okay, I'm gonna go hop in my car and go to work," without
Mm-hmm.
cleaning yourself up and putting on a fresh new set of clothes and all that stuff before you interact with other people because that's just weird. But anyway, so I always start every day, and I do this multiple times a day, cleansing first. That always is the case because if you're not
Mm-hmm.
clean, you're not ready to take in any new stuff. It's just
Okay.
literally going to bounce off of you because you've got a bunch of stuff around you anyway. So start with the cleansing portion of it, and this will happen sort of simultaneously. So you're not necessarily going to be aware of it, but you'll feel it. So
Okay.
I'll take you through the mindfulness meditation. Um, Again, as I'm explaining it to you, and I'll be doing it along with you. You can either choose to do it with your eyes closed or your eyes open. It's really simple. It's just going to be an in breath and an exhale. And the thing that I'll say is, if you guys can see my hand, I got my thumb and my index finger up. So what you're going to do is use your thumb, and this is my right hand, by the way. there's two ways you can do this. You can either do the finger method, which is basically using your thumb to close your right nostril. You're not going to press it super hard, but basically so it's closed. And you're going to inhale. And then you're going to take your index finger and switch it over and close your left nostril. And you're going to breathe out. And so you're just going to continue that back and forth process. Thumb to inhale, index finger, exhale over and over. Or if that's too difficult, and I understand, you just want to make it simple, breathing in through your nose without your hands at all. You're just going to put your hands in your lap, breathe in through your nose, and breathe out through your mouth. And I'll be doing it along with you so you can keep count. And we'll do this for maybe 3 minutes or so, and just sort of let you see what that's like to feel. Like I said, it's a very simple, very easy way to meditate. Doesn't take anything other than because you're naturally breathing anyway. So yeah, the only thing I will say is when you're doing the breath, like if you're closing your nostril method, inhale till your chest is full, and then switch fingers, exhale until it's empty, and then you'll go back and forth. So any questions on that from you or anyone in the chat who's going to do it? Again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I would, speaking from experience as a person who's taught meditation, done it for longer than that, but taught meditation for 19 years, super beneficial for everybody because number one, it's a cleansing technique, it's a healing technique, and if you're ever in a stressful situation where you're getting ready to pull your hair out and scream, just close your eyes. Whether you do it with the finger method or you just do, it literally is transformative. So I don't know if you guys are ready. If you are,
I thought we started already.
We'll get started in a second. But any questions from you in terms of how to do it? Or okay, so everybody's good in the chat. I'm gonna ask you to specifically close your eyes, Joker, in the chat. If you don't want to, that's fine. And I'll leave it up to you if you want to do the finger method. I know in this case, I would say if you're super comfortable doing the finger method and it's not gonna get you in your head confused about, okay, am I supposed to be doing my thumb or my index or however that's supposed to work, just do the breathing in through your nose, breathing out through your mouth. Me, I'm gonna do it the finger method because I've been doing it for years, so I'm used to it. So you're basically just gonna close your eyes. If you're doing the fingers method, you're making the L shape with your thumb and index, closing your right nostril, breathing in, switching to your index finger, closing your left nostril and exhaling, breathing in, breathing out, 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 breathing in, breathing out. And we're going to pick up the pace just a little bit because this will intensify, not much, but it will intensify the energy flow just so you guys can get used to it. So breathing in, Breathing out. Breathing in. 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 Breathing out. And now, just to lengthen it a little bit, you're going to hold your inhales and exhales just a tad bit longer. So we're going to slow it down just a little bit so you can feel the difference. Breathing in. Breathing out. 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 And I'll just leave you there for a few minutes and then I'll call you back. So just enjoy this feeling or sensation or however you're experiencing the meditation. And again, as it's unfolding for you, don't worry about if you're coughing or burping or laughing out loud or you're seeing colors in your mind's eye, or if you're not necessarily feeling anything other than just a bit of calm and relaxation. They're all equally valid experiences for a meditation. So you're doing well. And if any thoughts are coming up for you, that's fine too. Just know that you're bringing it up because it's clearing out stuff that you may have buried deep and it eventually will need to address, but that doesn't necessarily need to be right away. Just be appreciative of the fact that you completed your first meditation. And if you haven't come out of it yet, I would just say return, return, return to your physical body and slowly move your fingers and wiggle your toes and move around and stretch if you need to. But
I'm coming out.
it seems like you guys did well based on Joker's reaction. So before we get into questions, I'll give everyone another minute or so to sort of say that they're back, and then if you can just give a thumbs up in the chat so we know everyone's good. If you have any experiences you want to share, type it in the chat, and I'm sure our good friend Matt will pop it up for myself and Joker to talk about. But as I said, meditation can be easy. That was super easy, and that was step one of what would be a three-part mindfulness meditation. So yeah, like it's easy to do. And I see you, Joseph, Ashley in the chat. Are you supposed to feel tingling? Sure. Yeah. What that is, it's essentially, depending on where it is, it can be a simple manifestation of the energy coming through and clearing out old stuff and allowing you to awaken to what would be normal and natural, like we're supposed to feel under normal circumstances. If energy on the planet was right, everyone would feel energy in some form or another. So yes, John Bainbridge, you're absolutely right. It means it's working. All of the stuff, all of the different sensations that you can have or experiences that you can have, it means it's working. And now I will clue you in on why we did that meditation. When you're breathing in, again, to talk about energy, and this time I'll relate it to the sun, whether the sun is shining where you are or not. Everything is energy. So you're basically talking about protons, electrons, and neutrons. Protons are, so to speak, for lack of a better way to put it, have a positive charge to them. Electrons have a negative charge. And very good. I'm glad to hear that your hands and joints, even a little bit in your head, are feeling the tinkle. It means you cleared out some stuff that needed clearing, and you healed parts of yourself that needed healing. So that's good. But to just go back to what I was saying, so when you're breathing in the energy of the sun, or for lack of a better way to put it, you're breathing in love energy, or electrons, or things that make you feel good and are beneficial to your maintaining your health, physically, emotionally, mentally, and otherwise. When you're exhaling, you're breathing out excess protons or positively charged energy, or for instance, electricity or wireless technological energy that we're all bombarded with 24/7 because we live on planet Earth. Well, when you're bombarded by wireless energy, that's why you get nauseous and feel sick. And being in highly dense populated areas with a lot of technological stuff can not necessarily feel good and lead to stress and all that stuff. So when you're exhaling, think of it this way: it's almost like you are a sun. And so when you're breathing out all these. It's almost like mini explosions. I don't know if everyone's ever seen a solar flare, but it's like you're breathing out all of that negativity to be dispersed and cleared away. So when you're breathing in that love, and it's for all those areas that of hurt or whatever the case may be, or just a lack of love. Those electrons are flowing into you, and it's sort of like um, Velcro. Magnetic energies attract one another. So the more magnetic love energy you're bringing in, the more you're adding to that piece. So it's almost like a snowball building. The bigger your snowball of love energy is, the better you're going to feel, the more expanded in consciousness you are, the closer to enlightenment you're going to be. And Jimmy Nellis is correct. Your nervous system runs on electricity. True. So excess electric energy would have a negative impact, i.e., Austin Kramer, you probably know what I'm going to say. Cerebral palsy. Electric energy is basically an overabundance of positive ions, because that's what they're called. When any atom has more protons than electrons, it's called a positive ion. So the more you have positive ions throughout your body, it's constricting, it's unhealthy, can cause illness, disease, and in some instances, life-threatening ailment. So what you want to do, when you want to get cramping, when you get cramps, it's because literally you're constricting that energy and it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Well, how do you alleviate that? First of all, you get rid of the excess protons or electric energy so that it's one to one, there's a balance. And so You're not now you're not feeling pain, but there's still that constriction. So if you want to undo that constriction, you got to add more of those love energies, because love is expansive. It will cause that constriction to unfold and you can relax. That's
Mm.
why a lot of people, when they talk about, I can't sleep because my mind is racing,
Mm-hmm.
it's because you're being bombarded by all this wireless energy that's hitting other energies in your brain and in your mind, that's triggering that pinball effect. Energies are going off and they're popping up into your brain as thoughts. So now you're worrying about stuff,
Mm-hmm.
or you're super stressed out, you're feeling tense, you can't get comfortable. Well, you got to transform those energies from positive ions to negative ions, because negative ions are free flowing and natural and comfortable. Got plenty of space in
Mm.
between your atoms and molecules and all that stuff, and you're just feeling good, and you can literally fall asleep like that, because that's first of all, the natural normal thing under any circumstances is always an equanimity of protons to electrons. That's just naturalness. But if you want to expand as to why it feels better to have more electrons, it's because, as we talked about before, those various portions of your soul leading your total to your total spirit, that's one level of your total spirit. There are, and we won't go into all the details, but there are 12 levels to one universe. It's possible to go from living in a human body to being a black hole at the center of the universe.
Ooh.
So, if that's true, that means the more expanded you are, the bigger your spirit is, the higher level of those 12 that you can exist on. So, when you're super expanded, and this is the other thing that people talk about, I tried meditation and I fell asleep. That's because you expanded so far that your more permanent connection to the awareness of your body is gone, and now you're out in your spiritual energy fields of consciousness. And it's just like being in a warm bath. If you can sit in a warm bath comfortably and just luxuriate and relax and enjoy it, that's what you're going to do. But if you're constricted way down here, where is your focus? The tightness and constriction of down here, as opposed to being way
Mm.
out there, just sort of enjoying being, for instance, like the sun. Under normal circumstances, it's easy to be the sun. You just shine and radiate because your energies are that big, and you're not necessarily worried about, oh, it's uncomfortable to be the sun. No, you're just in your energy flow. You're literally glowing in your flow. For those of you who watch Live at the Roxy, you've heard me use that phrase a lot recently. Being in your flow. When you're in your
Mm-hmm.
brain, mind, soul connection, it's all there. And the energies are just pouring down on you like a waterfall. So, namaste. Congratulations to you all. You did your first meditation, and I don't think it was that hard either. So, hopefully, you enjoyed it.
Not hard, but very deep and very interesting. So, to go back to what you said when we
Mm-hmm.
started this afternoon, I'm just playing. When we started earlier, we talked. You talked a lot about your third eye and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I'm going in to counsel somebody, because you know I'm a therapist, I talk a lot about balance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is balance the goal? Because it seems like, so for example, we go back to Lucy. Is that complete balance with your environment?
Okay. Thank you for that question. That's a really good one. The answer to that is yes and no. The answer being yes, on this level where we're
Okay.
operating a physical body,
Mm-hmm.
you can't do anything else if you're not balanced. So you got to
Yes.
get balanced first. But once you're balanced, okay,
Okay.
now what? I'm balanced. What am I supposed to do? Well, the answer to that is to go out and live your life 20 as best you can, 20 for the majority of the 24/7, staying in that balance while also doing the things that you enjoy, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe having things happen to you that you don't enjoy, but you're still in
Mm-hmm.
that balance. And eventually you're going to become so satiated with experience, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I've done everything I want to do in life. So now, what am I going to do? Now, let's balance all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go up to the next level and maintain the balance while we're on that level and experience all. And you guys are all welcome. It's my pleasure to do it. I'm glad you're enjoying it. But once you're on that next level, well, then you got to repeat that process.
Mm-hmm.
Maintain that balance, experience all that you can on the next level. And then
Mm-hmm.
once you that's ascension.
Mm-hmm.
You've experienced everything you can on this level, get balanced, you go up to the next level. When you can then at that next level go out, maintain your balance and experience everything you want to so that it's permanent, that's ascension. But
Mm.
once you've achieved that singular level of ascension, what else is there to do? Under normal circumstances, you wait around and you enjoy life on that next level until the species that would come after you, and again, we're not going to get into this because that's a whole nother conversation. The species that would come after you does the same process that you did as a whole. And when they ascend, it's a cascade. They push
Mm.
you up to the next level.
Okay.
You experience everything. That's under normal circumstances. But I'll be honest with you, that's not possible on this planet for a whole host of reasons, which we'll talk about at a
Mm.
separate time because that's a whole, trust me, if you thought that what we talked about is a singular topic of discussion, that's a whole different thing. But anyway,
Mm.
the goal is to go up through the levels to the point where you literally no longer have to come back to, in this case, living in a human body.
Mm.
You've graduated to that point. Past that, it's no longer important. You've
So that
done
almost
everything you can.
esoteric level.
Yes.
Okay.
And by the way, I'll say this: esoteric level, everything is an esoteric level.
Okay.
It's degrees of what it is. You're absolutely right. You can't make that next leap and stay there and allow and or
Mm.
rather, so once you make that next step, you'll stay there until those who are behind you decide to make that next step. In which case, you will automatically be bumped up. In this case, under this set of circumstances, now we have a new way
Mm-hmm.
going up as many steps as you possibly can on your own as an individual, which is what my meditation technique and path is all about. But that's a separate
Mm.
issue. Can you? Perfect example. You led us into one of our topics for tonight. Thank you, Jimmy Nails. Is it possible to backslide on the karmic wheel? Absolutely.
Of course.
Because just because if you graduated to the next level, I'll use a perfect example. Let's say one species is a species of cats. The other species, so the first species is a species of cats. They've made it up, they've ascended to that next level. And then the next species, for Planet of the Apes is the perfect example. So let's say the next species is the dog species. They become the dominant species on the planet, but they're messing up stuff. They're not getting it right over and over and over. Just because you're on this next level above them doesn't mean you're not aware of what they're doing. And you don't have thoughts and feelings as well. So if
Mm.
you don't maintain your balance, like we talked about, while you're on that next level, it's easy to fall right back down,
Okay.
which is not to get super technical, but that's where the whole idea of the Lucifer and his fallen angels came from.
Okay.
They fell. Well, generally, it is much more to it. We can get into that later, but part of their fall is they lost their balance. So if you're no longer,
Mm.
if you're not in balance, you don't maintain that energy of that level. So if you can't live comfortably and naturally without harming other people on that level, well, then you're no longer fit to stay here anymore. So you get kicked out and you drop back down to the level of what we refer to as the level of triple duality, meaning the the three dualities of, are you choosing the path of love and helping other people, service to others, the path of light, or forget everybody else, I'm going to get mine and let them deal with it, the service to self path. The duality of, are you native to this planet, i.e., a human, or you an earthling or an extraterrestrial who was given a body to live in on. And again, we're getting
Mm.
super technical, and this
Mm.
wasn't my intention, but hey, we're in the moment, so I'm going with it. So that's a second level of duality. You're either a natural human born on planet Earth originally in your spirit, or you're not, like you're a Martian or another alien type who came here either to help out humanity figure it out, or you lost your place on your own home planet and now you have to live here because there's nowhere else for you to go. And the third level of duality is, you're in a male physical body or you're in a female physical body. And
Mm.
I'm not getting into the whole idea of non-binary system.
I was just about to ask
That's a
you.
separate topic, and we can talk about that another time. And I have
Mm.
we can get into that, but I'm
Okay.
specifically talking about, you were either born with a penis and identified, for lack of a better way to put it, as a
Mm-hmm.
male, or you were born with a vagina and you are identified as a female. That's the distinction I'm talking about. I'm not getting into all the, because there's always obviously degrees of shades of gray with everything, but this episode would be 10 hours long if we talked about all that stuff, which I don't think we want to do. So we can get into that on a separate issue. But yeah, so if you can't live comfortably without causing harm unintentionally to other
Mm.
people in a space, well, then you're no longer fit to live here. So you go back down. And I said all that to say this: Can you backslide on the wheel of karma? Sure. I'll use myself as an example. And this is a whole separate topic which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. CP. Why are
Mm.
people born with genetic defects and some people aren't? If if the God or supreme being or whatever term you want to use is fair, why are certain people born under certain circumstances and other people aren't? What is the reason? There has to be a reason for it, and it can't be this thing of God is randomly choosing who to punish or who not to punish.
Mm.
That's Catholicism at its worst, which is a whole another issue too. So my perspective is, each of us, when we're not living in a physical body, attached to a physical body, like I said before, we're aware of everything that we've done in all of our lifetimes, because you literally can see it. It's in your energy field. It's a color. You know what it means. Everyone else can see it and understands it. So there are no secrets when you're not in a physical body. You can't lie because it's plain as day in the color of who you are, and everyone understands it. So you're
Mm.
either choosing, you're literally, as I said before, you're the director, producer, writer, and actor of your own screenplay. So my perspective on me,
Mm.
and anyone who wants to chime in on this, feel free. We can talk about it. I chose CP in this lifetime. Didn't understand it at first. Took me years to figure it out and come
Mm.
to accept it. But why I chose it for myself specifically, because either there was some karmic stuff that I needed to take care of, and I wanted to wrap it up as quickly and as neatly as possible. So,
Mm.
what better way to do it than live in a body that's got difficulty and try to figure it out? Or,
Precious me.
that's actually true. We can talk about that too. That's what I talk about. An ion is
I'm
equal
reading.
parts male and female, or um,
Mm.
electric and magnetic, love and light, or rather light and love. Um, and there's a whole host of other stuff that can go into that too, and we can talk about it. But you're absolutely correct. That is true. So I chose CP partly because I wanted to take care of any stuff that needed to be cleared up and balanced, but I also wanted to say, let's see if we can pass this test that we've created for ourselves. Let's make it as hard as we possibly can. And again, that whole, it's sort of referred to in many places as the dark night of the soul. You're either choosing to do good despite the hardship, or you're gonna lash out and blame everyone and everything you possibly can, including God, and fall into this whole woe is me. Why is this happening to me? Poor me. I can't believe I got to deal with this thing. And who is that helping? Because basically what you're doing is having a pity party crying on the curb. And if you see somebody crying on the curb, most people in today's world are going to come up to him and say, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for you. What can I do to help? And eventually they're going to sit there and they're going to wind up crying next to you. And now you got two people sitting on the curb crying that need help. Are they going to help each other? No, because they're both in the same place. You need someone who's above that, who can look objectively at the situation. And I figured most people, some people, not most people, but some people would understand where I'm coming from. You have to come from a place of strength and objectivity to observe, why is this happening? And are we talking about our own worst enemies? Well, I'll say this. What's your perspective on who's your enemy and who's your not? Who's not your enemy? What's good luck? What's bad luck? Is it a bad thing that I wrote CP for myself? Well, if I ascend 5 levels in this one lifetime, as opposed to just barely scraping by and making one, as a result of choosing CP, was I my own worst enemy for choosing CP? Or was I my greatest support, having confidence enough to know he can make the right decisions if I allow him enough opportunities and show him enough support around him to give him the wisdom to make the choice that will allow him to ascend those 5 levels, as opposed to feeling sorry that he was born CP.
Let me ask you a question on that.
Sure.
The story, I don't want to say like to tell, but the story that you've used, you know where I'm going with this. When we talk about, let's talk about duality.
Right.
Mom, dad, his Catholicism, mom, I don't know how to, we'll say, the
she's
soft
Catholicism too, just not necessarily the same way. But yeah,
okay. So mom and dad and their duality, how did that, in line of what you were just saying, how did that play into your understanding of your CP, your acceptance or rejection of your CP, and how you kind of turned it around at 19, 20 years old for yourself? I mean, I know you were kind of going there, but, you know.
Let's go there. Sure.
Go ahead.
For those of you, obviously, for those of you that don't know, my father is Haitian. He was born in Haiti. One of 12 total brothers and sisters. And I see you guys quoting what Green Day in the chat, and I can get back to that too. Again, we'll circle back to that eventually. But to say that my father is one of 12 siblings, 5 brothers, 11 siblings, 5 brothers, 5 sisters.
11 siblings.
Haiti is a very Catholic church, despite the idea of it being into voodoo, but that's a whole separate thing, and that is true as well. But eventually he was raised as the oldest of all the siblings, and he decided that he was going to go into seminary to become a priest. And so you can see that Catholicism was a major part of his life, and he was actually in seminary for a while. He dropped out, decided it wasn't for him, and he immigrated to this country. I'm not exactly sure of all the details in terms of my mother's side, because she's adopted, but she was raised Catholic too. And so they eventually decided to get married and start a family. I have an older brother, 18 months older than me, able-bodied and all that stuff. Went off to college to become a pastry chef. He's not that anymore. Married with 3 kids and all that stuff. They live in Worcester, Mass. Shout out to all the Boston heads in the chat. But anyway, eventually they decided they were going to have, the plan was to have three children because my mom always wanted a daughter. When my brother
Mm.
was born first, I was born um, 18 months later, born with CP. How my story started was basically I was a month and a half, no, I don't know, maybe a
Two and
month,
a half months.
2.5 months premature. Was supposed to be born in September, was born in late September, was born in July. I was born um, breech birth, premature. Umbilical cord was pinched, which was basically cutting off the blood flow and the oxygen to the brain, which is why CP manifested in the way that it did. Spastic ataxic diplegia, which is basically a particular diagnosis in that the CP primarily
Mm.
impacts um, two limbs as opposed to four, i.e., diplegia. In this case, it is the legs for me. Um, spastic being, it's referring to that constriction type, which
Mm.
obviously would by proxy lead to an underlying weakness. And ataxic has to do with the perception of balance and maintaining balance and losing balance and all that stuff. So I don't know if he's in the chat, but literally, and I've told a couple people this, and I don't know if
Austin was.
I've no told anyone else this, but I'll say it now. In all of my life, I don't know any other person, not even one, who has the exact same diagnosis that I do, other than Austin Kramer. So shout out to him. Thanks if he's in here. So he and I can sort of joke about stuff and relate stories, and we understand each other because it's the same experience. But that's why, one of the reasons why, when I always talk in the live chats and whatnot about energies and meditation and what it's all
Mm-hmm.
about, why I do that stuff, I'm literally in the process. And if you watch live at the Roxy for any extended period of time, you know, um, I forget his name. The One of the guests that she had on last year was talking about James something. I forget his name. James Trotter, something like that. I forget his name. But anyway, he used meditation as well to sort of repair his brain, for lack of a better way to put it, and overcome some physical difficulties and more where the other two. So, sort of in that regard, some people probably can understand a little bit of where I'm coming from. But to circle back to what I said about my mother, basically, my mother and father had this child with CP, and like they made the decision, okay, there goes our dream. We're not going to have a third child because it's just going to be too hard. And they eventually came to the decision of, okay, my father basically, and he hasn't outright said this, but I understand it now. It was such a mental and emotional blow to him. Like
Mm-hmm.
he sort of, for lack of a better way to put it, threw in the towel and shifted all of the responsibility. Not James Maple. I'll look it up later, and it was in June. It's
Mm-hmm.
he's the super organizer from Afterbuds. But anyway, not to get myself distracted. But anyway, he basically abdicated the responsibility of taking care of Glenn and all the CP related stuff onto my mother. So she did all of the schlepping Glenn to the doctor and
Mm.
other medical appointments, and seeing if Glenn had to go through surgery or this or that or whatever the case may be. And eventually it became a situation where at one point my father felt like, okay, you doctors keep telling me Glenn is doing good, Glenn's doing this and that or whatever. Um, but I'm not seeing it. So I'm gonna go to this appointment and figure out what's going on.
Mm.
People keep telling me he's doing this, he's doing that. But to him, doing good meant, well, Glenn no longer has CP. He walks and moves around and does everything else like the rest of us. But that's just not realistic. So it was at that point, at that doctor's appointment, I think I was probably like 9, 10 years old, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
um, where he was literally at that appointment. I'm sitting outside the examination room, and I can overhear him having this argument with the doctor saying, basically, we've been coming to you guys for years and saying, Glenn's doing well, Glenn's doing this and that. He's had surgery, he's gone through physical therapy, et cetera, but He doesn't walk like me. He doesn't walk like most people. So
Mm.
what are you guys doing? Like, I thought you guys were gonna quote unquote make him better. And I could hear the
Mm.
disappointment in his words. First of all, he obviously didn't know I could hear him. Otherwise, he would have gone to a different location to have that discussion. Or maybe he just didn't care or didn't enter his thoughts at the time. Whatever. But when I talk about things like the words people say, number one, first of all words have energy and power. But the words you say oftentimes are more impactful for the people who hear them than the words they say themselves, because a lot of times the words that you say are the thoughts that they think about themselves but don't vocalize or are
Mm.
afraid to vocalize. And so when they hear it from somebody else, it's like, damn, they just validated all the things that I was afraid to admit to myself. So
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes a situation of like, fuck, how do I, how am I going to make myself okay with me, knowing that this is how the person or one of the people who's supposed to see me more than anyone else sees me and love me regardless, that's how they view me.
I have a question with what you're saying. I know you're gonna finish, but did that make you feel? I'm gonna say ashamed. I know you're not ashamed. Did that make you feel ashamed when you heard your dad, or make you feel any kind of way?
Oh, absolutely. Because what else could I do?
Right.
At that time, I was not, and we'll get into this, and this is partly where I'm going right now. As a 9, 10-year-old, they don't teach you the tools for self maintenance and self care and how to be. And I figured it would because it's an emotional story. I've had this shared this story in the Zoom a couple of months ago. And for those of you who are there, you know how you literally saw me, my energetic and emotional reaction to it. And this was 30 something years ago. So when I talk about people carrying around baggage, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be right at the top. It can be buried so deep that you think it's clear and cleansed, and surprise, here I am. So that's why I talk about cleansing and healing and all that stuff. It's an everyday thing. It's not a once a week thing. It's not a once a year thing. Oh, it's not a blanket statement thing. No, you literally have to work at it every single day. So yeah. The other thing is to go back to what we were saying. Like, of course, I felt shame and
Mm.
embarrassment and deep emotional pain because I didn't have the tools how to not feel that. I didn't know that wasn't me, that I didn't need to take on those energies. That was his thing,
Mm.
his karmic stuff to deal with, to balance
Mm-hmm.
out and to make whole. But I'm 9, 10 years old, so this is my father. This is what I'm supposed to do. So yeah. So that dovetails into why I left Catholicism, because eventually I
Mm-hmm.
came to the point of like, screw this. You guys keep telling me I'm a sinner because I was born, bro. Why? Why am I a sinner because I was born? And in the same breath, you guys will tell me, well, Jesus died on the cross for your sins. Well, shit, if that's true, then why am I a sinner? It should be all
Right.
taken care of. Like, it should be done. Like, and if that's the case, I shouldn't have been born with CP in the first place. So I knew right away, okay, Catholicism wasn't where it was at, and you're more than welcome. I'm glad that I can help. Um, I had to find a different path, and that's how I came into. I just I got into, the power of positive thinking, the magic of thinking big, that whole quote unquote new age stuff. And then I
Mm-hmm.
eventually found my way into true spirituality, which I think is different because it's backed up by actual, not just words and things like that, but actual wisdom and techniques to back up that wisdom so that you can personally experience it for yourself, aka gain true knowledge, because that's what true knowledge is, having the quote unquote wisdom to talk about a certain experience and having the tools or techniques to duplicate that experience for yourself and other people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So now I'm gonna take where you are, because you said 23 years old, you figured out your calling, and for a lot of people, they don't know who they are until they're 40, 50, 60. And is it fair to say that because you had this quote unquote disability, and I know you don't necessarily like that word, but
I'll talk about that in a second. But go ahead. Yeah.
Because you had this quote unquote disability, this thing holding you back, do you think in that holding you back, quote unquote, it opened you up and opened your brain up to new things and maybe bringing the spirituality and leaving the Catholicism?
Two things. First of all, I'll address the whole terminology of disabled, etc., or handicapped, which is I think is worse.
Yes.
But for me, and obviously to each his own, so I'm just speaking from my personal perspective. I don't like the word disabled, and you won't hear me say this, but I hate the word handicapped because number one, that has a connotation of not able to do or permanently barred from achieving this because there's a cap on what you're able to complete. To me, if you're going to use any term at all, physically challenged or handy capable, because I may do it differently than X, Y, and Z people, but I'm going to figure out a way, because you have no, and Austin can attest to this too, life on this planet is not made for the handy capable or the physically challenged. We're in a different world. It's made for everybody else, and we just got to figure it the fuck out. So we're going to work and ponder and consider and think about, okay, what the and sometimes this is literally happening in the moment. And for those of you who've been, obviously I know none of you have been, but for those of you who've been out and about in public with me, especially on extended trips or whatever, I like literally stand in front of something, shut my eyes and ponder, like, okay, what is the strategy that I'm going to use to achieve this thing, to make it happen, so where I'm not the quote unquote animal in the cage looking out through the glass at the world around me. So that's the first thing. Second thing, that holding back? Well, who wrote that holding back thing?
Who did? I asked you.
I'm the actor, writer, director, producer of my life story. So that's why I say, be here now, not there then. Give thanks for everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the blissful, warts and all. I love myself. I accept myself. I embrace myself. I did it. If I didn't want that part of my story, Glenn wouldn't have written it for Glenn
to overcome it.
Yeah,
to overcome it.
Exactly. Which goes back to what we said before, the quote unquote Green Day quote of, "It's no surprise to me I am my own worst enemy." Well, according to who? Are you saying that you yourself are your own worst enemy? Or are you allowing someone else to tell you that and you're accepting it because it's comfortable and easy and you don't have to ponder, well, am I my own worst enemy? Or am I the writer, director, actor, and producer of my life story? And I have to choose to accept the responsibility. You are where you are because of what you've done in response to other people and the world around you. Ain't nobody else gonna feel sorry for you for writing your own story, because you had the pen and paper. You could have chosen. So that goes back to what I said. When stuff gets tough, you gotta work on cleansing, getting to the root cause of why, and then you'll see the hows and the whats and the wheres and the whos, and it's easy to say, you know what, it ain't that big of a deal. Like, it's tough, but I figured it out.
Right.
And
you did.
Everyone else is better off for it, because now they can see, oh, shit, he figured it out. Why the hell can't I figure it out? Or am I going to choose to willingly or subconsciously not figure it out, go back into my shell, and be that person crying on the curb about, woe is me, I need help, but I gave you all these examples of what you can do and who you can talk to help you through it, but you chose not to. So at that point, now you're sucking my energy. You're using up my time. So I no longer have to feel sorry for you because I gave you an opportunity to help. I extended the olive branch, so to speak, and offered you help. You rejected it because it was easier to go that service to self path. Let me feed on this person and not have to put any effort into it. Or let me take a step back, objectively analyze and say, yeah, I could choose the easy path, but I can do the work and achieve the long lasting results that are beneficial to everybody. It's funny because Roxy said something, and I think it was Ethan in the live chat on her show a couple weeks ago that talked about, everybody's wallowing in the shit. Shit is tough, life is tough, whatever. But sitting in the shit can be good fertilizer for the growth that you're waiting to experience. So, are you really going to be pissed off and upset about the shit you're dealing with, or are you going to say, thanks, I needed some fertilizer to grow. I'm going to keep it moving. Which option are you going to pick? It's up to you.
Yep. So, and that's one of the things that, and we did our pre-interview. We did our pre-interview about a month ago, and
yes, we did.
And when we talked, being that we have similar trains of thought, but we approach them differently, and that's not saying that your way is wrong or my way is wrong, because therapy is a little bit more founded in science. Not that spirituality is not. One of the things that
example for it. Not to cut you off, but this just popped into my head, so I gotta say it. It's almost like a diamond. The more you turn it, the more facets you look at.
Yep.
Each individual facet is not a new diamond. It's all connected to the same thing. Yep. So the way I perceive things and I talk about things is no different than how therapy perceives things and talk about them. It's just about what perspective of the diamond are you looking at,
right?
And how many of those facets are you able to access to help other people understand? Still looking at the diamond.
Yep. And
so yeah.
And I think being able to look at, the diamond is important, because one of the reasons why I started the show is because I wanted to be able to say, okay, well, what do different people look at when they see the world, see other people, and just your perspective, because I work with guys that are diagnosed with autism, cerebral palsy, different, and you talked about it. And I remember one time you're like, well, how come I didn't know that? And I was like, I don't know. This is a good question. And we've had several conversations about it. And I think to do a better job for myself, getting to know someone who can educate me and give me that knowledge of experiential is important.
And not to cut you off, I'll get back to you in a second.
No, go ahead.
Joseph, Ashley, I see you. Matt, if you can do me a favor, keep an eye on that. It doesn't have to be on the screen now, but I definitely want to address that because that's something important. I think we need to talk about.
Go ahead.
But we'll let me answer your question first because it sort of dovetails into this one here. So finish your thought and I'll answer you, and then I'll talk about Joseph Ashley's question too.
So I'm going to wrap up my thought like this: outflow exceed your income when your upflow will be your downfall. A wise man told me that.
Okay. I'll speak a little bit because you're off by one word. So
I'm sorry.
If your outflow exceeds your income, so I'll talk about each part as I'm going through it, but if your outflow exceeds your income, then your upkeep will be your downfall.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially what I said, when your outflows, like if you're this loving, gregarious person who wants to help everybody, has a nice word and things like that for everyone, you're giving energy. Your love, your consciousness, your equal parts love and light, which is a singular atom, whole, which is talks about a whole different thing, but I'll get into that later. You're giving, when you say you love someone, you are literally taking an atom of energy that has at least one part electron, one part proton, and because they're fused together, that bonding creates a neutron. So that's you. That's a single unit of your consciousness, your love energy. So when you say, I love you, or much love, depending upon how you word it, like when you say much love, well, you're talking about more than one. Well, how many more than one? You didn't specify. You've opened the door. You've essentially taken that energy and created an energetic tunnel or attachment to that other person so that love can flow to them. When you say much love, well, you're sending that out. They get whatever amount, but that attachment is still there.
Mm-hmm.
So now, when they go into, if you're not aware of it, they can go into a pity party or whatever the case may be to draw energy from you.
Mm.
And now, because they have the permission, because you created that connection, they can take as much as they want for as often as they want. Unless you're cognizant enough to know, okay, I'm setting the parameters for you get this amount for this period of time, and then naturally it's going to disconnect.
Mm.
I can reconnect it or make another one later on, but it's not an in perpetuity thing. You don't just get to feed on me forever.
Mm.
So yeah.
And that's one of
So
the big things that I talk about, that you can't always be giving, and never replenish
exactly.
the well,
So
as we talked about.
that goes back to what I said. Your outflow,
Yep.
what you're giving to other people, is exceeding your income, and there are two ways to do this. Your income could either be you're following that same path of connecting to someone else, feeding on them,
Mm-hmm.
or, and this is, in my opinion, the wiser, smarter thing to do, use your natural tunnel connection, your brain, mind, soul, spirit
Mm-hmm.
connection, all the way back to God, supreme being, whatever term you want to use, prayer, meditation, good acts, all of that stuff. Let it flow from above downward. Why? Because who has a bigger supply to give? That person that you're feeding off of,
Mm-hmm.
or the supreme being of all creation?
Right.
Me, I'm choosing this path. Because then I don't have to worry about, unless I do something drastic like committing suicide or whatever, which is a whole other topic. We can talk about that later.
Mm.
Of why that flow would naturally stop. There are certain things that you could do to stop that flow, but you can always restart it.
Right.
I can only suck so much from this person before either one, they get sick, meaning their upkeep,
Mm-hmm.
or they die, the downfall.
Mm.
So if your outflow exceeds your income, then your ability to forget about spiritually, mentally, emotionally, but just physically,
Mm-hmm.
maintaining the natural functioning of your physical body, if you're diminishing yourself 24/7, 365, eventually your body is going to say, okay, enough is enough.
Mm.
To get out of this situation, I'm going to disconnect from this body so that the spirit doesn't get any more diminished. You're going to die, and that's going to be your downfall. So
Mm.
if you're not doing something, either prayer, meditation, good acts, spirituality, or feeding on hundreds of millions of people, what other option is there? You can't
Mm.
sustain it forever in an unnatural way, which is what that feeding on other people thing is. So, and that's, to be honest with you, that's what capitalism is.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Feeding on other people around you to get as much as you can for as long as you can. Why do
Mm-hmm.
you think governments and things like that crumble and
Mm-hmm.
economies fall apart?
Yeah.
Because there's only a finite amount that you can take before it all falls to shit.
Yeah. And if you think about it, you build up, you get top heavy, and then it all crumbling down.
Right, because it's not, you didn't follow that ladder path up.
Nope. There's no, balance. There's no centering. It's all
Right, it's
me,
just
me, 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 me.
forging myself to oblivion.
Yes. So,
And so, I
sir,
do want to get back to Joseph Ashley
I'm
because
going to tell you. So, you can answer Mr. Ashley. You got about 4 minutes left. Answer Mr. Ashley, sir.
sure,
And then I'm going to wrap up.
sure.
And, we can
Right.
schedule session 2.
So that I can say it, but man, if you could just start off, thank you. So you said, I draw and paint for a reason, for reasons that I hope it speaks for itself, but it's not working to get me work outside of my circle. If you're someone who lacks being social around people, how do you bring it up
Mm.
now? Okay.
Mm.
Multi-level question, but I'll go through each part. First off, the drawing and painting, you said you do it for a reason. Well, here's what my thinking on that is. Part of the reason is, and you've heard me talk about this before, being creative is to be in your flow, or you're being able to glow in your flow, or being a good flower, or FLOW-ER, flower of energies to the world around you. So I think part of the reason why you paint and draw and do that stuff is because that's your way of sort of being like a mini fireball or star, or whatever term you want to use, to radiate that energy that can be helpful to others. Just like the sun radiates sunshine to people, to planets, and people, and animals, and birds, and all that other stuff on to sustain life. That's what it is. So that's the first thing. That's one of the reasons why. And there's a multiplicity of other reasons, but we can talk about that later. But if you're not reaching outside your circle, well,
Mm.
why? To me, it's probably because you have your box or your container that's comfortable, it's yours, you know the ins and outs of it, how it
Mm.
works, how it does, who's going to interact with you, who's not, what they're going to say, what they're not going to say. You're in your safe space. To get outside of your safe space, you have to make your safe space, or that box, you have to make your safe space bigger. How do you make your safe space bigger? You got to look inward. You
Mm.
got to cleanse all of those emotional, energetic hurts, those bullseye points where if someone poked it, it's ow immediately, even without thinking about it. If they poke it, whether consciously or unconsciously. So you got to do your cleansing work. You got to do your self healing work, which is one of the reasons why I talked about the meditation, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. Um, it's a natural cleansing technique. The deeper you dig, the more you find there's the cleanse. But at the same time, the more permanent you can make your healing. It's almost like doing tie dye, to circle this back to the world girls, actually, or or in ancient times when they would dye fabrics using vegetable juice
Mm.
and things like that. Like, you dip it in once, it maybe retains 5-10% of that color, and everything else washes out and goes back to normal. You do it again, it retains another 15 or 20%. So now you're up to 35. Everything washes out. You do it a third time, now it's jumped up to maybe retaining an additional 30 or 40%. So you're up to like 65 or 70 or whatever the math is. And then you do it again, and you wash it out, and more it's becoming quote unquote color fast. And eventually you do it the last time,
Mm.
it retains 100% of the color, and no matter how many times you wash it, it will retain that color because it's color fast. So the more you do your cleansings and healings and stuff like that, or whatever meditation technique you're using, or prayers, or what have you, the more permanent you are to stay, at minimum, at least in that place of balance, if not further beyond into the various levels of enlightenment. So that's the first thing. You got to make that safe space bigger. The other thing that you mentioned is, if you're not social around people, how do you bring it up? Well, you got to learn to be comfortable with who you are, to the point where being social is no big deal, because no matter what anyone says or does,
Mm.
those areas of pain are no longer painful if they poke and prod them. How do you do that? What I just said. Work on cleansing and healing yourself, and putting yourself out there more often. Because the bigger your space gets over time, eventually, and I say this because it's true, I wasn't always the type of person that could have a conversation for hours on end with however many people about whatever. No, I was always the wallflower that would speak when spoken to directly, but I would be listening and observing and everything else like that. So if someone came to me and had something that they wanted to ask me about, then I knew what I was talking about.
Mm.
But until you're enough of you, you're whole, you're balanced, you're complete, there's no way you're going to be comfortable in any set of circumstances. So you have to, it all, and I always say this, and I'm sure people probably like, oh God, here we go again. Glenn's talking more about energy, but it's true. It's the only universal thing. Like, you have to be whole.
Yep.
You have to be in balance, because when you're in balance, everything is available in front of you, because you can understand they're talking about this thing. Well, if I shut my eyes and go inward and be quiet, that natural flow will come in. The answer is
Mm.
there. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything in life has an answer. And to me, love is the answer to everything.
Mm.
Until you figure out to love you enough, i.e.,
Mm-hmm.
I love myself, I accept myself, I embrace myself, everything else is all a moot point one way or the other. You just got to be brave enough to say, I chose this.
Mm.
This didn't happen to me because someone did X, Y, or Z. Yeah, they may have done that X, Y, or Z, but who wrote the script to be for me to be in the position to have to be concerned with them doing X, Y, or Z? Me.
Mm.
So that's why I always say I give thanks for all my blessings. And I know and understand that I am who and where I am because of the things I've said and done in
Mm.
response to myself and in response to other people and the world around me.
Mm.
When you can truly say, I give thanks for my blessings, and it's not just words that you're saying, but you actually mean it. And you can also say, I love myself, I forgive myself, or I love myself, I forgive myself, I heal myself, or I love myself, I accept myself, I embrace whatever it is. When you can say that and mean it, and people can talk to you about something that was painful in the past, but now it's conversation, it's no big deal, there's no energetic response. That's when you know, okay, I've healed this thing. Let's move on to the next thing and see what
Mm.
happens. So yeah. So hopefully that answered your question, Joseph.
I think that answered a lot of people's questions,
Yeah,
sir.
so
So
there you go.
I'm actually, sadly, gonna have to end the jostling for now,
Right,
and there will be an episode 2 because we have so much more to get into. Um,
right,
I think I was speaking to you in our pre-interview,
right,
and one of the things that you showed me, and
right.
we talked about hurting people, and broken people, and you said something. I'm paraphrasing, so don't beat me up. Hurting or
Uh,
broken people only know what it's like to be hurt or broken. So what that says to me is that you, sir, are showing a lot of people that hurt and broken and all of that stuff is probably more mental than anything else. And
right.
you have
Which
overcome
right,
so
right, right,
much.
right,
And what I want to say to you, sir, is thank you for being on Everyday Experts. There will be a part 2. And as always, namaste, my brother. All right.
right.
Matt, throw up that slate for me. So, coming August next week, we're going to have Lady Rachel Miller and then Becca Levine, August 14th at 10 p.m. We're going to be talking about all things branding, music, singing, and gender fluidity. On August 21st, I'm going to have my friend Michelle Pierre. She's an ABA therapist, which is applied behavior analysis. And my friend in his new book, August 29th, is going to be talking about it, James Hopner. And then the August 31st at 10 p.m., Matt Munoz is going to show me the way of the Jedi, and he's going to interview the interviewer. So you can take that away, Matt. And I was reading through one of my old books because we talked about words are my weapons of choice. And I'm going to read a poem, Glenn, and I'm going to let you think about it. but you're gonna have to wait till next episode to respond. All right, so it's called Pinstrokes.
Unless it comes to me right away, which is possible.
It could, because I know you. So this is along the lines of what we were talking about. It's called Pinstrokes. I write poems, but you aren't ready to hear them. I burn ears because you never took the time to clear them. You want me to write about the frost on the trees, spiders, bees, and leaves. I'm not Robert Frost or Walt Whitman. You write to impress the masses. I can barely impress me. Breaking down my psyche with every pen stroke, vomiting hyperbole and metaphor, making myself choke. I'm ill as in my pen has a sickness, poetical as in a language that love communicates with. You do damage with Cheney and Bush, I do damage with my pen. Incessantly striving for the perfect poem to console me. Pen strokes have me cipher with myself and I. I want to write the best but can only mumble babbles. Listening to my intellect and knowledge, having freestyle battles. My id, ego, and superego combine to perfectly destroy each previous line. And I write long poems to make myself complacent. Write every thought in my mind crammed into my mental basement. Losing teeth and cracking guns because I spit so hard. Still a fucking atheist and still praying to God. I'm a joke, but there isn't anything funny. Still in the shit for more than the money. Weeping in my own stigmatic bloody palms. Pen strokes come back, inciting a panic calm. Ill poetical writes and remain stagnant. I just broke the pen. I'll start writing with metal shards and magnets. Pen strokes have me creating again. I don't understand my gift, but molested until it becomes a sin. So
I can respond to that really quickly.
Go ahead, drop your knowledge.
There's a lot more. I was first of all, the concept of you can write words that people don't perceive or understand because their eyes are closed or they're not ready to receive it. Same thing with their ears, like they've got their blocks up. They're not ready for that energy to come through those barriers that they've built up. First of all, so that goes back to what I said. Cleansing is an ongoing thing. It's not a once a week, once a month, once a year. No, it's literally, for me anyway, a multiple times a day thing, every day, because every minute is new and different. Rob's heard me say this. Like, it's an impossibility to step into the same stream twice because it's always in motion. So you may be standing at one point of the stream, you step in and once you pull your leg out, well, by the time you put your foot back in, that's new water. So it's always different. So that's the first thing. The second thing, like writing new poems with magnets and metals, to me, magnet, love energy. Metal is the purest form of a conductor of love energy on the planet. So you're connecting in that way to the purest form of love energy on the planet. The expression is, for lack of a better way to put it, crystal clear and concise and to the point, and has a multiple, just like the diamond. Like you can look at a diamond in the inner facets of it and see different reflections and things like that. So it's always where are you at in the turning of the diamond and the perception of it. So that's that. The other thing I will say is words are my weapon of choice. Well, and I said this to you earlier, words are energy. Energy can take the form of a sword, an arrow, a blunt club, a shield, or a suit of armor. What are you choosing those energies to be? How are you putting them into effect? Or it can be a combination thereof. So again, until you've gotten into the shower or bath or whatever it is, cleanse yourself off and put on that new suit of clothes and you're out into the world. All you're doing is basically, and this is sort of crass, but I'll say, you're like a pig in shit. You're just waddling around more and more, and the more more that shit gets kicked onto you, the deeper and more forceful you got to dig to clear it off to get to you and not this mud soldier or mud man, I guess you could say. So it's really easy to get into being the mud man just by virtue of walking around on the planet. But never forget, like, when we die, and I'll quote Karina, eventually at one point or another, we're all gonna die or leave the body one way or the other. So what's the best way to live your life? Because eventually you're going to return to your spirit and realize, oh shit, I did all of this, even though the original plan was for me to do that. So if you can figure out a way for yourself, and it doesn't have to be my way or
Mm-hmm.
any religion or whatever, if you can figure out a way to not be a dick and also not be a dick to yourself and be a dick to other
Mm-hmm.
people and the world around you, but also be something that can be that lighthouse or that flashlight in the fog that somebody's looking for because they need it. If you can do that, well, then your spark of love and light and all that stuff, your fireball gets bigger. And we all know how wildfires get started. Like one simple touch can light up that additional spark. They can go out and touch something else, and soon the world is ablaze and we're all better for it. So there you go.
I like it. So be here now, not there then. The Honorable Glenn Cesar. Thank you for being on Everyday Experts. Like, subscribe, follow up, come back, have your friends watch, leave a comment. Mr. Glenn Cesar, we're trying to push him. We're going to start a petition for him to start his own show, and that is our next goal. So, Mr. Matt, take us out from Everyday Experts. Mr. Cesar, namaste, brother.
Namaste to you and everyone else watching.